What is up, guys? Welcome back to OverTakes. This is Misfit. Hope you guys are all doing great. Today, we're going to be talking about the video that Jon Spector dropped about the league format and what's going on with that. We're also going to talk a little bit about the London roster. They finally dropped it. It took forever. I was sitting on that waiting before I started doing some other stuff with different rankings and that kind of stuff, talking about all the teams and where we think they are and all that kind of thing. We'll talk a little bit later on in the episode about what's going on with that. And also the Valiant drama that's been going on in the last few days and my thoughts on that and some of it. To me, it's a lot of petty stuff, but we'll get into that later. But first, I really wanted to talk about first is the video Jon Spector dropped. A lot of stuff that we were waiting to hear what was going on. You know, like the league format, who's going over to the East, all that kind of stuff, when we're starting, especially that. That was, there was a lot of hearsay and rumor, and they all proved to be true. So, Jon Spector dropped a video, I believe it was on Thursday or Friday, somewhere in the latter half of the week. Thursday, I believe it was. And he gave details. He didn't give all of the details, but he gave the important ones for right now that we need to know. There's a lot of logistics and things like that they have to work out. But there's a lot of things that he talked about in this that I wanted to go over. First off, the league is starting in April, which we kind of knew. There was a lot of leaks about that. It was going to start in April. And it's a departure from where they were. They're shortening the length of the season, which in a way, I'm a fan, so I want to watch more matches. I want to see these guys play the top level Overwatch that we can see as much as I can. But I get it from the standpoint of there was a lot of burnout in the first couple, especially the first two seasons. And last year took its toll on some people in different ways, the start of COVID and all that kind of stuff. And it's reasonable to cut the season down. Also, they're sticking with the format that they kind of threw themselves into last year, which everybody seemed to like, including me. I mean, some people don't like it, especially like a lot of the guys that are traditional sports guys that kind of got into the Overwatch League because they play Overwatch and they like sports and, it was a new esports experience for them. And I'm one of those guys. They didn't necessarily like that tournament style format, which is traditional with esports. I like it for esports. I'm not a fan, if baseball or something like that went to it, it'd be weird. But what happened with Overwatch League especially, and it goes out through the first three seasons, is there are certain points when, especially when you get later in the season and start locking up playoff spots, especially when we were running in the stages, there were matches that literally meant less than nothing. And it was just for me, especially doing content since the league started, it was hard to find a reason to have excitement for, say, Boston and the Houston Outlaws when they had no chance of doing anything. Or early on, like the Mayhem playing the Shanghai Dragons. No one cared. It was worthless games. They meant nothing. Baseball and football and these other meat sports, regular sports, whatever you want to call them. They thrive on this thing. This is what they do. There are games, but even in those sports that are multi-billion-dollar industries, there are games you don't watch. You're not watching football, for instance. You're not watching Jacksonville and the Jets in week 14. It's a worthless game to watch. There's no reason to. They have nothing to play for. You could do the whole draft, whatever thing, but on the whole, it's a garbage game that nobody cares about. And what this does is it also adds incentive, especially in esports, adds incentive for all the teams to get in the tournament, because in order to get exposure, to expose your brand, you have to play well. In order to play well, you have to be in the tournaments and qualify, etc., and so on. It's just the way it is with esports, and that's fine. I'm fine with that. Certain things work better in certain ways. Football works better with once a week because of physicality than baseball, which has less physicality. It's just the way it is. I enjoy that format. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I was really trepidatious about it when they came out with it. I was not a cynic, but I wanted to see how it played out because it just felt like, from a traditional sports point of view, some fans are getting jobbed. But if your team sucks, that's the crux of the problem. You need to be better to get exposure. We have the tournament format. We have the division set up now, it's a little different than last year. So this year we have in the East, which are going to be playing from Korea and China, we have Shanghai, Philadelphia, Seoul, Guangzhou, Hangzhou. The last entry into this, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, are the LA Valiant. And this caused kind of a stir on Thursday for various reasons and things and all kinds of other stuff. But that's going to be the East. The rest of the teams are going to be in the West. San Francisco, Paris, Florida, the Gladiators, Atlanta, Houston, Dallas, Washington, Toronto, Vancouver, Boston. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot New York in the East as well, and London. So the East is going to be 8 teams this time, not 7, which is good because it was uneven and it was kind of weird, and teams got buys in a 3-round tournament and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of odd. So we have 12 in the West, 8 in the East. I kind of like how this sets up, and I'm going to be brutally honest right now. The Shock don't have much opposition. Much. Like hardcore opposition. Someone that's a threat to take away their crown, as far as I'm concerned. Looking at it today, on January 16th, there could be a lot of things that happen between now and then. One of them already has with San Francisco. We'll get to that before we dive into... But so that's the divisions. Now, one of the things that's going to happen in the Western side is London and Paris are going to play from Europe because of travel restrictions and what have you. So they've developed a latency program code for the game so that everybody's on an equal playing field. Everybody has the same ping. So like if they have 200 ping, you're going to have 200 ping. It's kind of a balancing out of how things are with the way they're globalized right now. And I think this could work to their advantage in the future where, when we get beyond COVID and things like that, where you have teams in Europe and you want to run these things and you get more teams over there and you're globalizing and you're expanding the league and you're making it bigger. I think this is a fantastic idea. I think it's great. They also were talking a lot about other broadcast things in their partnership with YouTube, which I'm going to be honest was okay. It was the matches. The thing that I like the best about it, especially being a content creator and talking about the matches, is they were like almost instantaneously up for review and stuff like that. Now they're also doing a thing with a no spoiler thing, especially for you Valiant, New York, and Philadelphia fans in the West whose teams are in the East. So you can go on the Overwatch League website. It has some sort of no spoiler, and you can watch the game in its entirety without any scores or anything like that popping up. I'm not that guy. I've never been that guy, even with traditional sports. I just let the games go. I will watch them if I want to watch them, and if not, that's whatever. But that's great for you guys that do. Chances are you're not going to see your teams play if they're playing on a Saturday night in Shanghai. You're going to have to get up at either 3 o'clock in the morning or, you can watch the VOD when you wake up, whatever that may be. Or, you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know. That's all on you, man. I think that's also a good addition. I want to see some of the stuff that they had with Twitch. I want to see, now they were on Dogman's new show, which is fantastic, by the way. He's an awesome host. I love that dude. And, he's a great personality. He kind of has that Pat McAfee show kind of vibe. He's got a lot of good stuff going on. Check it out. It's really fun. And I'm never like one of those guys that is not going to promote somebody else that's doing Overwatch League content because it's all great for the league. But he had Jon Spector on, and he asked him flat out about when in season 2 you got the all access pass and you could do the player cams, and he was kind of hinting at not right now. But the way the replay viewer is, I get that. I like the replay viewer thing where I can go watch Prophet play against, the Dragons, and I can see what he did. But I also liked watching it live. That was one of the things that I liked doing. I like going back and being able to do that in the replay viewer, but watching it live and watching, especially in season 2, watching like, why the fuck is Bumper doing, how can he do what he does? And you're just like, go on his cam and it's in the middle of a match. And I liked it. And you can bounce around. You're like, well, I haven't heard much from this guy. Why is he doing this? Or this guy's going off. I want to see what's going on. What's he looking at? How, what positioning is he taking during the match? Some of that stuff I like doing. I mean, I think it would be fantastic if incorporated that again. But, right now it doesn't look like YouTube is doing that. But at least they're making some improvements to make it more than okay. And they were talking about drops and other things and stuff like that. We don't have the schedule itself yet, which is, it's rough to do right now. And I'm going to be honest, you don't know what's going on. The vaccines, and now we're in the weird portion of the thing is still raging, COVID. Countries are locked down and all that. Nobody's traveling. So there's no fans, all that stuff. So, there's like no fans going to matches. They're saying maybe, possibly, if, I'm assuming they're hitting at grand finals in September, the potential to have a live crowd, which would be fantastic. I would love that, but it's going to be hard to write the schedule. So they're going to have to figure things out at that point. So to me now, this hints at a lot. Now, this is just a little side tangent here. This hints a lot to me at the Overwatch 2 thing that we're all waiting for. I don't think that it's going to drop this year during the season or before the season. Because the more you look at it, they're not going to give these teams an unfair advantage. Like, even if they do say, hey, we're dropping it at BlizzCon, that gives them, from that point, potentially 4 weeks. I'm sure they have, like, they get a little ahead, and they have to sign contracts and all that, and all the, the non-disclosures with stuff, because they've always learned the heroes before they come out, and they know what's going on with them. I don't think they're going to change that. Potentially 4 weeks before you have a season start. I don't think they're going to do that. And they won't drop it in the middle of the season. So I wouldn't be holding my breath for Overwatch 2, is what I'm getting at. Because the league means a lot, and they don't want to screw with the integrity if, like, in the middle of, like, with the May tournament, they're like, okay, so, or after the May tournament, they're like, yeah, Overwatch 2 is dropping, so, we're running for the rest of the season on Overwatch 2. I don't think that's going to happen with a 1 week break in between the first half and the second half. I would say that late 2021, early 2022, from the way it feels. But they did drop a little. I mean, if you guys all play Overwatch, they dropped some lore and stuff like that. I think they might try and gloss some of that disappointment over with dropping a new hero, even though they said they weren't going to. It feels like they're going to do something, because they haven't done anything for the community since Echo, which was last March, which, we're pushing a year right now. So, and they're dealing with COVID and all that stuff too. So we had all of that news, which is all good and great. I'm excited for it to start. I'm really disappointed it's not starting now. I would love to see it start now, but hey, we got Overwatch League coming up in April at some point. I'm assuming early, if they're doing a 4-week tournament cycle. So you got 4 weeks of prelims, go into your tournament. And then the most important thing with the tournaments is they're going to settle the whole thing. It's not going to be an East winner. There's going to be an East winner and a West winner, but they're going to try and do the winners of the tournaments facing off against each other. Now, they were talking about getting the East team or the West team to Hawaii. Closer with the latency and all that stuff, instead of playing from Los Angeles or, say, Florida or Dallas or San Francisco. The latency is going to be horrible. So they're going to get the teams to Hawaii, which is in the United States, so they can get them there. Closer to the teams that are in Korea and China. I mean, it's still across the Pacific Ocean, but, geography aside, it's still closer than on the East Coast or even on the West Coast. That's going to be great. We're going to actually get things settled instead of just kind of like old school baseball, where you had the East, like the National League play the American League only once a year, and that was in the World Series. I want to see these teams play. I want to see the best teams play the best teams. And at the end of the tournaments, if Seoul wins the East tournament and the Reign win the NA tournament, I want to see them play and just settle that chunk of the season. Kind of gives us the stage feel a little bit, but in a different format. You're not, the wins don't all quote unquote count like their preliminary tournament matches. There's only 4 of them, not 500 of them beforehand. It makes it easier. It makes it a little bit easier to create content and talk about all the matches, which I'm excited about. So we can really get into, when the season starts, we can get into these matches. Every team plays 4. So we can get into these matches and talk about them. They're not playing 2-3 times a week like they were at one point. Yeah, I think it's going to be really good. I want to see the globalized thing. And it's a lot of testing stuff, too, for future. And beyond where we're at right now. And then they also said that they're changing up the broadcast. I think if they start to do it a little bit more like the actual broadcast of the matches. The finals was great. It looked great. It had a great visual feel to it. It felt like there was a stage and all that stuff. I think they're working that a lot more. So I think that's going to be good. So that's pretty much all that Jon Spector had to say besides his awesome whiteboard. Guys, check out the video. He has some just crazy stuff on there. One of the things is, does Mr. X need a new box? Because, he's like 2 feet tall or whatever. He did get, Matt, Mr. X, we'll talk about that really quick. Uber's partner got promoted basically as, the head of their, what they're doing on broadcast and stuff like that. So I think that's really good for Overwatch League and for CDL. He has a history with that. He was in there like way long in the past. He was a esports guy. Did a lot with that. Obviously, we all know him as Uber's partner and all that stuff. I think it's great that they're promoting from within guys that know the scene, guys that were in esports themselves, and guys that are fans. Because sometimes these high-powered executive dudes, I mean, they kind of go in the cash direction more. They see the cash, but they don't see what the fans want. They're doing the perception of what they want, and we're going to force them to want this. Where someone like Mr. X, who's been in there, played, is a fan, plays games, he's a gamer. He's not a guy wearing a suit that's got a Harvard MBA. He's a guy that knows the scene. He's a perfect guy for this, I think. He's also, he kind of plays a doof on Plat Chat and all that. It's kind of, but he's a really smart guy. I mean, I'm glad that they're doing this and putting him in there. So we had that news. I just want to touch on that really quick. Let's talk about London's roster. We finally got London's roster, and it's pretty much what we expected, right? British Hurricane gets promoted. So let's talk a little bit about that in case you guys are not too familiar with the British Hurricane. They're the best team in EU, hands down. And it's not even my opinion. They won the gauntlet, the European side of the gauntlet. They were head and shoulders above the rest. They have a lot of good players on the team. Really excited about this because, and it has nothing to do with the localization of the team. I want to see the greatest players, and I think this is one of the best collaborations of European talent on one team that we've had. We've had guys here and there, there's a lot of guys in the league that are from Europe, right? These guys have all played with each other. They've done really well. I mean, this doesn't have that vibe of Misfits or like Rogue or some of those teams way back, and then them pulling some like the Mayhem that were Misfits. It doesn't have that vibe to me. These guys are really, really good across the board. We have some veterans in there too. And they have some other guys that were on other teams that they just picked up for their team. Okay, so here's their team. We have Blase, Ripa, Kelix, Hattie, Malf, and Hybrid. Okay, so they were great. I watched them. They're a really good team. They added Blase to this. So they took the majority of the roster from Hurricane, and they added Hybrid from Team Doge. And then we had Blase, who was on the Outlaws last year. I think this team could be good. I don't think they're going to be great, but I think they're going to do well. I think they're going to be a Valiant-like team this year. I just have that vibe about them. I do think they come in with expectations because they were so good in Europe. And I also do think that the European Overwatch fan base is putting a lot on this team because they were so good in contenders, the majority of them. That getting into the league, they might have a little bit of jitters to start off, but they do have chemistry, which is great. And one of the things that they do have from that team, they have Kelix, who has experience. He played for Toronto last year before they brought in Cruz, and he was on Boston before. So he's a good guy. He's not gonna overwhelming me with flashiness and like extraordinary crazy plays. He's a really solid main support, and I think he's a calm dude too. He's one of those, and he's been there. He can tell these guys what to expect with the matches and stuff like that. And a lot of them have a lot of experience, so it's not like they haven't played But I think this is going to be, Kellex is going to be good for them. Same thing with Blase. He had his ups and downs with the Outlaws last year and, with Boston the year before that. But I think this is a good landing spot for the guy. I think this is going to work out well for him. I think they're going to be better than expected with this roster, I think. Right now, I'm going with that right now. We haven't gotten into any kind of power rankings or anything like that. We're not going to do that for a little bit. So that's London. Like I said, I think they're going to be decent. Kind of not hot take, but just, first impression, I'm going to think like somewhere in that 12-team setup, probably mid-pack. I think that would be good for them. Somewhere in that area, in that range. I think they're going to be better than a few teams, not quite on the level as some other teams, but they have a chance to beat a majority of the teams that are on the NA side. Now, there's a bunch of drama going on, I guess, with the Valiant. Okay, so like we had talked about earlier, the Valiant are going to the APAC region to play all the teams from China and the Dynasty, along with New York, Philadelphia, just to round out some space out there. Now, there's been a lot of drama. There was a lot of weird stuff going on with Halo. I don't know if it was a fake account or, bad leaks or just people debating, stuff like that with this whole notion of a Chinese company buying the Valiant. Then the Valiant had to come out and say these are false. And then the players were kind of doing some stuff where they were kind of like spouting off on Twitch and things like that. The fans are kind of upset too because, they're an all-Western roster and they're going over there. Now, I get it to an extent. I'm a fan. I don't want to have to deal with my team not being able to watch my team at a live time. I understand that. Listen, guys, I've dealt with this. I'm a Denver Broncos fan. I grew up on the East Coast. I've dealt with this my entire life. My team is not on all the time. Then this goes pre-NFL packages and all that kind of stuff. So it sucks. But it's not going to stop me from being a fan of the team. If you're stamping your feet and you're complaining about them playing at 2 o'clock in the morning, you might want to just go with the fact that you're not a Valiant fan anyway. If you're a true fan, you're going to stick with them wherever they go. Yeah, it sucks that they're not here this year. Okay. I get it. I mean, I stick through thick and thin with my teams. Florida, I could have easily dumped the Mayhem as my team. They were the shittiest team the first 2 years of the league, and they did not start off last year that good. I could have just said, fuck it, I'm a Shock fan, because they suck. But I didn't. You could do the same thing. You could be a Valiant fan, or you could say, fuck it, they went to the East, fuck it, I'm going to join the Gladiators and be a fan of them. I don't respect that. I'm going to be flat out. You're not a fan. You just want the thing closest to you. And I understand being proud of where you're from and, your local area and they're our team and you wear it like a badge of honor. I get that. But to dump the team and complain about it, it's going to suck to have to watch them on delay and all that stuff. Fusion fans have to deal with the same thing. So do the NYXL fans. Don't see much from them in the news complaining about, or not in the news, but on social media, complaining about having to play in APAC. Plus, your team's good enough to hang with those teams to a certain extent. I don't buy into the narrative from last year that they were better than NA, and it was proven in the finals and in the playoff. The 14 playoff. Minus Soul. Soul was had that meta down. I'm over some of the drama, childlike stamping your feet. It's one season that they're going over there, and most of it, if not all of it, is because of the current situation with COVID and all that. Yeah, it's kind of weird that they're shipping the team that's all Western, but you don't know what the other teams said in meetings or in various other situations that were behind closed doors. We don't know what that was. Yeah, it would be easy to say, well, why isn't Florida or Dallas or one of the teams that's all Korean just staying over there? Well, there could be things that are going on with those teams. Hasbro might not want to pay for a whole base in Korea. Same thing with Misfits and Ben Spoon. They might not want to do that. Immortals might have been okay with that. Be careful, with railing this team for doing what they did. And railing the league. There has to be balance over there. We have to have some kind of, to do this tournament format. Yeah, it's easy just to throw out the thing. What would you guys have said if the Shock went over there? That's what I want to, there's a question. If the Shock went over there, would it be any different? Because they have 5 to 6 Korean players? Is that different than the Valiant going over there? Or would you just be happy that the Shock are out of NA and your team's going to do well? Which would be my sentiment with that. But it's just one of those things with me. I don't get the vitriol against the Valiant. If they did that to better the league and to get the brand out there, that's fine with me. I'm okay with that. There's no need to be petty about stuff and stop being a fan of a team because they're playing in a region for one season because of circumstances beyond all of our control. Unless you're one of the morons that doesn't believe that this shit's real. Which I don't think a majority of you are. So just temper your anger with the Valiant if you're a Valiant fan. It'll be fine. Maybe you go over there and wreck APAC and show everybody how much better NA is. This is an opportunity. This isn't like an exile. You gotta take it like that. And if you gain some Chinese fans and some Korean fans, hey, so be it. That's what's wrong with that. But that's my feelings on the Valiant. And then one more bit of news before we dip out here. I do want to talk about it really quick because he was so awesome last year. I really wanted to say a couple of things about Ons retiring from the Shock. It really sucks, but I understand where the dude's coming from. Mentally, it was a strain on him. I heard he was having wrist problems as well. A lot of stuff like that, and it just was piling up from last year. I think if he played this year, that the Shock were hands down, locked down. They would have been overwhelming favorites by leaps, bounds over other teams. It would have been the Shock and whoever comes in second. I think that closes the gap a little bit because he's so damn good on what he plays. He's the newer generation of long-range hitscan players, the way he played it. It's great thinking about how Carpe and Pine and some of those guys played. This guy was at a different level. On his worst day, it was their best. So he was just an amazing talent. I'm sad to see him go, and it's going to hurt the Shock a little bit. That's, I think, some of the reason why they picked up some of the guys they did. They had to change up their play style a little bit. So that's why you saw them pick up Glister and you saw them pick up Nero. They needed to get a couple of guys in there to fill in that void in DPS. Nero's a projectile, I get that, but Glister is the next available closest thing to what he was doing. Because by that point, I'm sure Happy was already signed by Houston and a couple other guys. But kind of bummed that Ons is leaving. And so I wish him well in whatever he's doing and all that kind of stuff. So now that we got the schedule format, not the actual schedule itself, here's what we got coming up. We're face deep in the offseason. We have rosters set up. Now, the next step I'm going to do is I've been watching stuff. I haven't done anything for the last couple of weeks because I've been watching matches, doing some different things, looking at rosters, watching players that have been signed to these rosters. I'm going to be doing off-season grades for the teams. By that, I mean, this is not power rankings, not where they're going to finish, how they're going to play. This is what they did in the offseason. I'm going to have a couple episodes with that, kind of going over each team, what they did, what I thought of it. It's taking me a little bit because I want to, see how these guys are. Some of the guys, it's kind of hard to find their stuff, see what they're doing. I also wanted to watch British Hurricane because I kind of had that vibe, as everybody was saying, that they were going into London Spitfire slot. So I wanted to check some stuff out. So that's where we're at. I'm grading these teams. Probably sometime next week we're going to start doing that. And then we'll start talking about BlizzCon in a couple weeks where we dive into what's going on there. There's going to be a tournament coming up for the Kanazaka map, the 22nd to the 24th. Maybe we'll watch that, analyze that, see how some guys are playing. There's also another tournament going on, I believe, next weekend with a few Apex I keep saying Apex. A few APAC teams, and I believe the Fuel are in there. It's like Shanghai, Guangzhou, Hangzhou, and the Fuel, maybe Chengdu. I'm not 100%. So we have a couple different tournaments. There's some off-season stuff going on. Then, of course, at BlizzCon, they're doing this Shock versus the World thing. We'll talk about that. And then from there, we're going to start, doing, like I said, doing the power rankings initially for the season. Start talking about where we think teams are going to finish, all that kind of stuff, and get into all the heart of the season. And then we'll just launch right into the season in April. It's going to be fun. Next couple months, I'm going to try and get some other stuff going on too. Working on that, start just ramping up the Overwatch League talk. We had a couple of months where we had not much going on. We got a lot of stuff starting here, and I want to get this conversation flowing since we have players on teams, format, all that kind of stuff. Most likely we're going to be running on the same game. I'm really highly doubting we're running on Overwatch 2, but this has been a long one, guys. I had a lot to say. I hadn't talked in a couple weeks to you guys, so I just wanted to throw a bunch of stuff out there, start talking about it, get you guys thinking about things, start talking about it. And so that's going to do it. Thanks again, everybody, for joining. Thank you very much for all of your support, all of the likes, all of the subscribes. Everybody on YouTube, thank you very much. If you're new, please hit a like, hit a subscribe. I do Overwatch League content, especially right now, starting to amp it up. We're starting to get closer and closer to the season. We're about 3 months away, somewhere 8 to 12 weeks, however it is. So we got a lot of stuff, a lot of time to talk about the offseason, get things rolling. Thank you very much to everybody that's been here supporting me for the last 4 years we've been doing this. So I just want you guys to dive in. Let's start talking about it. And that's going to do it. This is Misfit. I'm out. Everybody out there, stay safe. Have a great rest of your day. And I'll talk to you on the next one.